This world has always been full of chaos. In the midst of this brutal struggle, those who have God's blessing have the ability to overcome difficulties and win. Such people are called heroes. And those who were despised by these heroes, called the enemy, in the end, the people who destroyed remain only notorious members of their organization. It is with this dark organization, the name of which is Dark Shadow, that this story begins. At the moment, the young future heroes are in formation. This girl's name is Serena. Now she is waiting for her first class. She is assigned to the 5th training center. Unfortunately, this is not the center she wanted to go to. Because her favorite thing to do is fencing, it was better to go to the 1st training center, because it specializes in fencing. Since no one gives you the right to choose, you will have to learn professional survival, which is not very popular here, and it is of little use. Because the training is very hard, a person simply does not have time to learn all the material, and it will be quite difficult to become the best in this business. At least because of the instructor who teaches here. He had a harsh attitude towards his students and a sharp look. This is the most cold-blooded person in the Dark Shadow. Everyone calls him the Ice Demon. Training began almost immediately. Each of the students had their own number, where the teacher could call and ask something. This time was unlucky number 23. Under it was a nice frightened girl, who certainly did not deserve such treatment. The Ice Demon ordered her to draw her sword and attack him, so I wanted to see what his students were capable of. Even though it was very scary, the girl silently stepped onto the field and drew her sword. Number 23 has average swordsmanship skills. Today the guys will see the abilities of one of the teachers of the 5th center for the first time. No matter how this instructor is, he definitely despises his students. It's not very smart of him. As soon as number 23 went to attack, the teacher in one easy movement knocked the sword out of her hands. His blow is indeed very strong. The student even fell to the ground. The girl could hardly hold back her tears. The mistake was that she dropped her sword and cried out afterwards, a sign of weakness. This answer was not quite right, so the instructor turned to the whole group. Perhaps one of them could give a more accurate answer. Of all the students, only Serena dared to say something. In her opinion, the mistake was that the girl was swinging her sword hard, and when she fell down, she immediately surrendered. In general, one should not draw one's sword if one intends to take a person's life and the warrior is still breathing. He should strive to live to the very end. This answer was already better, but unfortunately not the right one either. The instructor immediately realized that Serena was bold, so he also ordered her to attack him. The fight started quite confidently. Unlike the 23rd number, this little lady held her sword much more confidently, and attacked as well. When the teacher struck his blow, she had the guts to fight it off and not drop the sword from her delicate feminine hands. At the end, they held each other's weapons to each other's throats, and stood still. Serena only managed to wound the instructor's hand. The blow she made was called a shadow strike. It's a rather famous technique in fencing that can be used to destroy an opponent with one blow. That's why it can't be continued or defended with it. Today the girl didn't succeed in destroying the teacher, but maybe next time she would succeed. If a warrior does not have the utmost confidence, he should not reveal himself, because if he cannot take a man's life, he will not be allowed to stay alive. These words can only be taken into account, and next time to get exactly where you need to go. In this class, all the students who were at the class clearly understood the skills of the instructor of the 5th center. In all subsequent classes he trained the whole group hard, as if preparing them for war. After jogging 10 laps, the guys immediately without rest began to perform shadow kicks 18 times, 100 repetitions each. Until everyone finished, no one could even dream of resting. Since today number 23 and number 7 were very different from everyone else, for them was a personal task, 10 laps of 50 repetitions each time. No complaints about this is not accepted. The children have already understood that you cannot joke with him, so they agreed to everything he said. Suddenly someday will decide to give a little rest for good behavior. The group continued to run around the sports center, waving their shoulders hundreds of times. No matter how hard they waved, it was too harsh for a normal workout. Pretty soon there should be some discontent. The most important thing is that it doesn't affect the whole group at once. All this time, the teacher just observes and doesn't interfere with the process. His frightening empty blue eyes are full of discontent. Serena has wounded him in the shoulder, and he just stands there not showing any pain. Who is he anyway? Any normal person would have gone to the medical center and bandaged the wound long ago. He shouldn't have underestimated him. That's the reason the girl lost. But now the girl had definitely managed to figure out how to make a fatal blow, and next time she would definitely not miss. From this day on, the frustration in the 5th training center suddenly disappeared. Serena would put more and more effort that she would succeed. In fact, the teacher was in a hell of a lot of pain. The girl had hurt his shoulder too much. This pain was driving him crazy. The man is currently a retired third-rate gangster, but in the past things were much better. These kids haven't 100% realized who they've really gotten into yet. If girl number 7 dared to stick her sword into the instructor, that means she's certainly not ordinary. With blonde hair and hope in her eyes, that little girl must be a hero. But then why would a specialist hero go to the organization of evil? Is this seemingly innocent lady a spy? Watching so intently and smiling. The teacher is squirming from the wound he received during the battle with her, and she has the nerve to smirk while running. This cute little know-it-all would be a pain in the ass, and would ruin the teacher's peaceful life as a third-rate villain. For starters, it was decided to ignore her, so as not to give in to provocations. Serena, in turn, didn't hold such a grudge against him, but just wanted to study even harder. The main character in this story is called Jack. That would somehow earn a living. He has to serve as a junior instructor in the Dark Shadow. At the moment he is a third-class villain. The expression of anger on his face appeared not because of the student, directly now on him affect his position in this life, and lack of money. Since an untrained person, purely physically unable to perform all those tasks that the teacher gave, the children simply began to fall off their feet. They no longer had the strength to even just stand still. Some of them, in order not to lie down on the ground, emphasized on their sword and thus rest after such a long run. Serena was already completely exhausted. Her arms were falling off, and the instructor continued to fool around while everyone was squirming and crawling around. But the cold gaze of the instructor forced the girl to go to the end. They started a silent game. Jack was in terrible pain, wanted to go to the medical center and then eat, but did not talk about it, and the girl in turn was terribly tired, but pretended that everything was normal and continued to work. Who will be the first of them to give slack? And the teacher doesn't even get extra pay for overtime, but because of his pride, he didn't finish the lesson. In the end, it came to the point where the student became dizzy and dropped the sword from her hands, trying to stay on her feet until the last moment. And then she fell to the ground. Now we could say for sure that the teacher had clearly won the silence. The class was over for the day, and everyone was allowed to go to their rooms. Since none of the students deigned to pick up their classmate, Jack had to carry her to her room himself. His injury made it doubly difficult. Upon arrival, he threw the girl on the bed screaming how hard she was. Why all of a sudden so much trouble, because of one little wench. Jack really wanted to get revenge for this horrible day of his life, so he stood right over the girl and started to think how to do it. He shouldn't have laughed at his instructor on the first day. First we need to take her sword away, at least disarm her, and then we'll see. During the search, Jack found 2 small knives, shurikens, and poison that could be added to human food. Is it even legal to have all that stuff on you? What if she really is a spy who collects data and sends it back to her homeland? Also on her ring was the crest of a rather famous Rivali swordsmanship family. If this is a spy of a very noble rad, then what about this situation? If someone finds out what kind of condition the teacher has brought his student to, then he's going to get his ass handed to him. The situation was not pleasant. Something had to be done and very quickly. Maybe just go and bury this girl somewhere and be done with it. These places often have accidents during training. People always lose their lives in evil organizations, so it's not a bad option. If you do take her life, you should do it quickly and confidently. For heroes like her, crises are just a stepping stone to becoming stronger. In order to pull this off, Jack has to have a plan. How to 100% clear himself of suspicion. A little background on what happened before Serena went to school. Her family had some very big problems. Even with the hard work they put in, they couldn't solve anything. Eventually, her father asked Serena to find a doctor. She had no choice but to come up with something. There used to be a secret organization of leaderless warriors called the Free Knights. The Reveil are the clan that founded the stone sword, which created one of the 3 great styles of swordsmanship. However, the stronger the rock, the more easily it became covered in moss. The stone sword became an outdated style, and the clan began to fall apart rapidly. Serena's father was too eager to pass on his knowledge. Eventually, he became so ill that even the priests refused to help him. Her father's efforts to revitalize the family were not to go to waste. As his successor, Serena needed to find a solution. But there was no other way but to inherit the stone sword. After all, it was an outdated style. And then Serena had a new idea. It was to simply study all 3 great styles. And even if the fire of war could not be mastered because of the intermittent pulse, the shadow strike could be mastered. Serena heard a familiar, pleasant voice, and then she saw her father. As she ran to him, she couldn't stop asking him how he was feeling. Serena wanted to tell her father about her brilliant idea. As soon as she tried to do so, she heard her father's eerily penetrating voice. When she looked into his eyes, she accepted the terrible words, that the future of this family now depended on her. Now she must always remember that. The girl woke up suddenly thinking that it was just a bad dream. Suddenly she thought about where she was and what she was doing here, because she was at the training session. She thought of the instructor and saw that he had her ring. Had she been exposed? She had to get out of there quickly. But at the same time she wondered why she was in his room and not in a torture chamber. In the end, she couldn't figure out what was going on. The teacher started talking about how the girl's lineage had fallen, and the descendant of that lineage, who was a master swordsman, had come right here. And he added that there wasn't even any pride left in a rusty stone ball. Serena was smart, and she would have been foolish to react in any way to such a provocation. She immediately grabbed the weapon behind her back and decided to take her chances. But unfortunately she was unable to throw the shuriken. After this action, Jack decided to tell about the execution a swordsman undergoes if he loses a fight. There are 3 styles of such execution. The first is called the stone sword, the second is the shadow strike, which Serena practiced in the first class, and finally the third style is the flame of war. Then the teacher said that in this house lived a descendant of a swordsman. Probably even this person is the heir of a swordsman. These conclusions he drew from the sword he found here. Apparently the teacher realized that Serena is a descendant of a fallen lineage of blade masters. The girl came here to try to revive the Rivali family. But why did the instructor suddenly decide to reveal his secret? Jack made up this story on purpose so that the girl would mistake him for the heir to the sword. I had to at least create a similar purpose. The girl decided to ask directly why the teacher had told her this secret. It was urgent to think of a way to fool around this weak-minded girl and then get rid of her. The legend was that Jack had been studying the fusion style, composing flame, shadow striking himself, and he just wanted to share his knowledge with his student. But this style requires obvious refinements because you never know what side effects might appear. It's impossible to teach fusion to someone who wasn't talented to begin with. The teacher's words make sense. It's true that an imperfect style puts a lot of strain on the body, so it needs to be refined. It turns out the instructor lied about putting experiments on his student. The girl has to be willing to put her life on the line. That's how the story should begin, with Jack killing Serena. The teacher continued to entice the girl to agree to these experiments. He promised her that with his help she would be able to improve the stone sword in order to continue her lineage. He pressed on the most painful point. For the sake of common goals, Jack asked the apprentice to perfect the fusion together. The girl had doubts about whether to trust him, but what he showed was clearly a flame of war. If you combine it with a stone sword and a dark strike, you get incredible power. In the end, the girl agreed to such a dangerous venture. Jack was madly happy that he managed to fool this little girl, but of course he did not give any sign. In his opinion, from that moment on, the siren is no longer a living person, but a doll that belongs to him. The next day, the guys met deep in the mountains to begin training. For a swordsman is the most important thing that would be strong lower part of his body. So Jack gave his student weights for legs. They were very heavy indeed. The siren immediately realized that to do such loads during the training period is too dangerous. She literally could lose her life and such weight. The instructor said to take the root of the velvet tree 3 times a day to ease the effects of training, and on the calluses to stick plaster. Despite all the risks, the girl agreed. She sincerely believed that this was the path she would have to take. At the same moment, Jack in his mind just mocked her. He is already looking forward to when the girl will lose her life. It's been 10 days. In the classroom, Siren looked clearly tired, and today she just fell off her feet. Just then, Jack thought she was finally reclining. He was already rejoicing. 10 more days went by, then 10 more. But nothing was happening. The girl just kept growing and honing her skills. The teacher was furious. Jack had no way of knowing what was wrong with this girl. She was only getting stronger. Serena walked into the room and saw the thoughtful teacher. When she asked what he was thinking, he gave no answer. Though he was thinking about how to get rid of her faster. It was necessary to find another way sooner. Suddenly he had a new idea. Jack said it was time to get into real training from tomorrow. The girl was already very excited to see what the teacher had in store for him. The instructor kept thinking about how to get Serena out of the way as soon as possible. Another teacher entered the room. With a smirk, he asked if Jack was up to something. After all, everyone already knew that he was spending too much time with number 7, Serena. The teacher replied that he was just giving her advice in training, nothing more. The other master insisted on his own and gave a crude hint that Jack seems to have a crush on this student. Since no one likes slander and insults, Jack didn't think twice and poured coffee on him so that next time he would know how to behave properly. The teacher started screaming. If his colleague had lost his mind, how could he even think of such nonsense? He was only thinking of how to get rid of it as soon as possible, but it was a pity that he could not tell anyone about it. His colleague immediately began to calm him down. Then he left the room in frustration. On the way out, a colleague carefully pulled out some paper, which was noticed by one of the trainees. But what was in that paper, we have yet to find out. Each style of swordsmanship has its own method, including a special one-strike attack. Shadow strike targets vital points, flame of war tears gaps in the enemy's defenses. And the stone sword dealing damage no matter how good the defense is. If the fusion of styles is not done properly, it can ruin everything. So you need to take advantage of the advantages properly. The teacher showed Serena how he could do, but he himself injured his wrist at that moment. A mixture of flame of war and shadow strike techniques, it was the strongest art of swordsmanship, combining speed and deception. That's what it should be in theory, Jack thought in his mind. The girl was able to feel this power not much, though it was only a trial run. So what would happen if you put all the power in? And the teacher saw the girl's interested face. It meant that she believed. Does she really want to take up teaching seriously? You could tell from her face that yes, she would do anything for her goal. And if you add Jack's style to the stone sword, you'll have a powerful strike that can destroy everything in its path. But don't forget that at any moment, Serena could lose her life to that kind of power. If this strongest style was really possible. At the moment the girl started to doubt it, but the teacher didn't hesitate, and said that he wouldn't really waste his time teaching someone like her if it wasn't possible. Naive Serena believed him again. The teacher couldn't be happy that she had fallen for the words of a common fraudster so easily. The only thing that gave a girl faith was her worthy goal. There was no turning back. Jack tried to load the girl with the most difficult training at every opportunity. And in his mind he only wanted her to leave this world as soon as possible. After all, it was only a matter of time. It's been 1 year. Serena didn't look as fragile as she used to. Jack raced her so hard that sweat poured down her throat, but instead of fading away, she'd only gotten stronger. The training was over. He told her that if she wanted to become a true swordsman, one had to do more than just physical training. The teacher was so tired of her that he didn't know where to put himself, and wanted to get rid of her. But the girl was in no hurry to go anywhere. She only apologized and begged him to teach her the rest. Jack had no choice but to agree. From that moment until this day, 10 days passed as Siren began to study different subjects under the fifth instructor: philosophy, physics, history, and even magic. The amount of knowledge he had was more than any scholar. Jack could not stand such mental loads and fell asleep at the table all the time. Serena felt terrible at such moments. The girl left the office and was approached by Mr. Third Instructor. He began a rather unpleasant conversation with the girl that rumors about their intimacy with the fifth instructor very quickly spread. But the lady was calm, because she had nothing to hide. She is just a student at his center. Mr. Third Instructor was very harsh and ordered her not to play dumb, because she knows exactly what they are talking about. Before the girl could answer, the instructor revealed her secret and said that he knew that she was a spy of the Revelii and that she had nothing to hide. Then he challenged her to a duel. The girl promised that if he left her alone, he would remain unharmed. The man was astonished at such audacity. And even if she was of a very kind, how did she get the idea to threaten the instructor? A fierce fight broke out between them, which fortunately or unfortunately didn't last long. Before she could do anything, Serena took the instructor's life. Even though she was good at fighting, she had no idea that she would be so strong and take down one of her teachers so easily. It dawned on Serena, because if the third instructor knew what kind of family she was, then everyone else already knew. And before the other instructors stormed in here, she needed to get away sooner rather than later. Jack heard a noise outside the door. One of the trainees burst into his room to tell him that Serena had taken the life of the third instructor. The teacher was shocked. Everyone was standing in the hallway discussing what had happened. It was already clear what had happened, and of course everyone knew that the third instructor had accused Serena of espionage. Jack was angry and couldn't understand how long they had known about her mission. If she was suspected, he might get in the hot seat too. The debriefing went on for a long time. Apparently the organization doubted Serena from the start, and Jack seems to be on the list of suspects. Well, he had no choice but to hide himself from the situation. Numbers 8 and 11 went to the report. All the trainees went to the firing range. And the instructor decided to go after number 7, which was Serena. It seems that the trainee wanted to stop the fifth instructor, but he was very angry and there was nothing she could do. Jack went into the woods. He saw a scary picture. There were 3 people lying on the floor. They were all teachers. The man couldn't understand how she could do it with just one, but how she could do it with 3 at once. It's not a girl, it's a monster. He heard a strange sound in the distance and rushed over. Jack was trying to find Serena, but I think she saw him first. The girl was a mess. At one point, they looked at each other and didn't know what to say. But I think the girl knew it would happen and that her teacher would come after her. Though she'd hoped not to meet him. But he couldn't do otherwise, because Serena had lost her mind. She had to repay the favor to her enemy. What Jack had probably been waiting for a long time happened. They lunged at each other, swords drawn. Their eyes filled with anger. The girl's sword pierced Jack. Her eyes were filled with fear. Suddenly from behind appeared the second instructor, and before he could do anything, the girl immediately took his life. Jack was alive, but he realized that now he could be next, because she had only hit his shoulder. The girl was merciless. The teacher kept a smirk on his face and thought that Serena was still as clumsy and stupid as ever. The moment Serena didn't realize what was going on, Jack handed her a bag. It contained various things she could use. Also inside was a map that the teacher had ordered the girl to follow. But why was he so kind? They had just been fighting and now they were helping each other. But as it turned out, it was another cunning plan of the man. The girl heard her teacher say that she had become nothing more than a decoy. But was that enough to repay her mentor's kindness? Jack was embarrassed by such words from her. After all, she didn't need to do anything else but just get out of here. She had already brought too much trouble to her mentor. Serena once again had to endure the rudeness and at the same time what she thought was kindness from her teacher. There was no more time anymore, and she needed to get out of here sooner rather than later. Anyway, Serena didn't know all the truth about her teacher and was very grateful to him. She wished him to meet his true successor. At one point it seemed that her teacher had gotten sad. But a woman who was the first instructor came to the scene. This woman had finally chosen a successor to the organization. Everything happened just as she had intended. Behind her were a bunch of people who were ready to fight Jack. He seemed to have no hope of escape. Suddenly, the first instructor offered him a fair duel. The teacher was grateful that he wasn't just going to lose his life, but was given a chance to fight one last time. But unfortunately, the injury was taking its toll and preventing me from putting up a quality fight. The first instructor apologized with a smirk for not being able to be present during the first fight. Jack didn't lose his positive attitude and made it clear that he wasn't going to lose. The two men went at each other in a fierce fight, using all their abilities. Each of the three base styles of swordsmanship has its own characteristics. The stone sword is immune to all enemy defenses. Shadow strike is unrivaled in a swift victory. Flames of War inflicts damage by retaliating after blocking an attack. These characteristics cause injury. Unfortunately, Flames of War will be weaker against Stone Sword, which can pierce defenses. But you can't go hard against the enemy's counterattack. In theory, our villain should win. But overcoming the difference in physical strength with skill alone is not easy. In fact, it's impossible. The first instructor held Jack over the cliff. Perhaps if it weren't for the injury, the loser would have been harder to determine. But he was a defeated swordsman and needed no sympathy. But the teacher still hoped that Serena would be here soon. However, the first instructor was determined to do battle with the heir of the Reveille family as well. In the end, this ruthless woman threw Jack off a cliff. Then she was ordered to catch traitor number 7. The only good thing about all this was that now the girl no longer needed to be bait. She's been wandering the woods looking for rescue at regular intervals. Siren had just defeated the 30th person to try to take her life. Already by tradition she tore off a piece of clothing and wiped her sword with it. The girl likes her weapons clean even in such extreme conditions. Thanks not only to swordsmanship but also to the survival skills that were passed down from the 5th instructor, the girl is able to stay afloat in the midst of a chase. It became clear not immediately, but only with experience these survival skills were obtained through fighting with other strong opponents. What a lousy life must be to have to learn such skills. I would like to know what all these trials were given for, but alas, not destined. As in the other girl figured out not one and not even two people and a whole crowd that eventually surrounded her completely, there was nowhere to go. Here was not only the first instructor, here came all the swordsmen of the elite army Dark Shadows. There was an offer for the girl to surrender, in which case she could be guaranteed her life. As far as we know, the first instructor is a man who keeps his word. But should she be trusted now, after the siren has taken the lives of 30 of her warriors? The apprentice realized that even if they kept her alive, they would put her in a dungeon where she would rot. In general, no one even doubted that the successor of the 5th instructor would not give up so easily. Serena asked not to be called that because she wasn't the heir to the Flame of War. However, Siren was the last person to be trained by this traitor. It would be difficult for a non-living person to take on another student. Just like Siren 5 instructor joined the organization for the art of swordsmanship, he wanted to get knowledge, and the organization wanted to get his skills. So after demonstrating his swordsmanship, he sacrificed himself for his student. But no matter what, he lost his life in a fair fight with a sword in his hand. He lost for only one simple reason, because of the injury on his shoulder. If it wasn't for that, maybe it would have ended differently. The memories came flooding back to her, and she blamed herself for hurting him in that class. If it hadn't happened, things would have ended differently. The siren had probably never regretted it so much in her life. Surrendering to these people was not even an option, it was necessary to take revenge and go all the way. While the teacher was speaking, the siren thought of a way to escape, and at one moment suddenly attacked her. It was so unexpected that the teacher did not react and lost her life in exactly 1 second. She was immediately followed by her servants, who also fell apart. Chasing after skills and knowledge, the girl begins to easily lose those who are dear to her. The last sword receiver is left. To be born a warrior is her destiny. As a first-class swordsman, siren just has to destroy all who will get in her way. As it turned out, Jack still managed to survive, but he was badly injured. When the man coughed, he spit out a red liquid. He was very dizzy and needed to take pills immediately. The only good news is that everything went according to plan. Since Jack knew in advance that he would fall from the cliff, he hid a parachute under his clothes, which provided him with a soft landing, but because of the dense trees he was slightly injured. But still he managed to save himself. Now it's just a matter of surviving. As it turned out, Jack is not so bad alone. As they say, he is his own master. He doesn't give a damn about the attitude of the rest of the world, let them choke on it. How not to work in the organization was not bad, the only thing the guy really regrets is his pension. Now it will not be, and now where to go? Nowadays it is very difficult to find something worthwhile. Well, from tomorrow it was a clean slate, as if nothing had happened, as a real villain. In the meantime, Serena had gotten to the place where her teacher had fallen from. She wanted to make sure he was alive or not, because knowing this cunning man, he could make up anything. On the edge of the cliff lay his sword, which the girl picked up. So far it was the only thing left of the teacher. Serena said that she would repay the teacher for his favor by surviving and getting out of here on her own. She swore with her sword, as long as she could breathe, she would make sure to keep all the knowledge he had imparted to her. In the future, the heroes vowed to become a swordsman progressed to the whole world. Such is the story that in the original only 2 people know. It was a farewell message to her first and last mentor. Some time passed, the girl was sitting in a cabin with some young man named Charlie. He cooked for her a shish kebab from a snake. It was an incredibly delicious dish. In fact, the guy was very surprised that Serena had never eaten anything like it. Because she lived in the Imperial Palace, this kind of food is on the table there every day. Anyway, he was pleased that she liked it. The girl was used to peculiar dishes, so she couldn't stop eating this culinary masterpiece. There is nothing better than viper for dinner to develop immunity to the poison, but of course if something goes wrong, you cannot survive. When cooking such a delicacy you need to be very careful, unless of course you want to take someone's life. The guy asked how the table noble especially found herself in such a place, then the sights attracted. The girl just wanted to practice in the southern part of the continent, at least she answered so, and what she really needs here we will soon find out. Serena also ordered a guide to tell her where to be and where to go, for a walk going far into the jungle is quite dangerous, so it's best to do it with a person who knows the area well and can save you in an emergency. The girl assumed that it would take a long time to find a guide, but it turned out to be much simpler. The locals don't fear the southern forests at all, but there is something even they fear, the Shahat. It's an evil forest witch, a creature that eats people's hearts. Charlie had miraculously survived the first time he'd encountered her. The scar that ran through her entire body was proof that this encounter was real. It looked very scary. It felt like the scar was left behind by a sword. The blow had been precisely aimed at vital organs. The guy warned that Shada is a very powerful ghost, so do not underestimate him. You need to be very careful, and in his what to run immediately. Serena was very grateful for this information and for such useful advice. It was late at night, and the lady still couldn't sleep. She thought about this immortal ghost that devours hearts. Suddenly he is not so immortal as they say about him, and he can be defeated in reality. And it sounds like a lot of nonsense. But if they do exist, then Serena would be able to see those she cares about. At least one more time in her life she would like to see her teacher. When the young lady finally fell asleep, it began to merge a terrible dream. The events took place in winter. A woman named Isabel called a blizzard. But what happened? This woman was a hero that everyone admired. She revealed that she was sick of playing the part, and said that it would come down to Serena too, the worthless life of a hero, with ruin awaiting her at the end. When Serena asked what it was all about, Isabel said she would show it all right now, but first she wanted to pierce the girl with eternal ice. After that, the girl woke up in a cold sweat. As it turned out, this was not her first nightmare in a short period of time. Gradually she was getting used to it. It's just that it's been a whole 3 years since the destruction of the Dark Shadow. Serena has been through a lot in that time, like traveling across the continent to build a good reputation for her family. I had to take on absolutely any challenge. Very sensational was the moment when the girl defeated the mistress of the Dark Mountain. I wonder why Isabel was so angry that day, and what suddenly can make a real hero become a bandit leader. It is incomprehensible. A person has everything, power, fame, and she puts a cross on herself when she goes to the bandits. Then a young, very friendly young man came into the girl's cabin. It was the same guide Charlie had found. His name was Thomas, by the way. He looked very young, and Serena wondered how experienced he was. The task was not an easy one, and she didn't want to trust her life to some little boy, even if he was cute. Thomas wasn't persistent, because he'd already received an advance this month, so he offered to wait until his other colleague finished his work. He'd be older, so either option would be fine with him. As much as Serena didn't want to do it, she just couldn't put it off any longer. In the end, she agreed to keep this guide. Meanwhile, Jack was now in the same settlement as Serena, before they even realized how close they were to each other. Now he sat in the shade to read the assignment he had to complete. He was as usual in his style, and criticized just about everyone, especially those who gave him this assignment. If it was a message from an evil organization, they could really send a member of the organization this far, the devils. It was too late to be angry anyway. Jack knew what he was agreeing to, but why had he been sent so far away? He had to find a guide, but they were so expensive, so where would he get the money to pay for it? Just at that moment, Thomas comes out to meet him and offers him his services, at a local wasteland where everything can be agreed upon. Since Serena is already with Thomas, and the second guide is busy, they will have to wait, because there are only 2 people in the whole village who can lead him somewhere safely. This information was helpful, but not happy. Only 2, that's too few, and I wanted to hire someone cheap. Then Jack began to feel something heavy on his head, which turned out to be a snake, which eventually bit his finger and then went about its business. Because the drug is too strong, the guy fell down and couldn't move, which is why the viper got on his head. He'll have to lie on Earth for a while. The guy even started to think it was an accident, even though there are snakes all over the place. If you blame someone, they won't believe me. I'll just say it was a coincidence. So let them rest. Next time it won't be that easy. Then Charlie comes running up the street. He thought Jack was sick and needed help. Without even waiting for an answer, Charlie offered his specialty kebab and vipers, in case a person was hungry. In fact, it was a shock. Just that one snake had bitten, and the second was already weighing on the skewer like a kebab. In general, you could take away the food and no money was needed. It was a gift from the institution. As Jack was not in the best of moods, he struck the snake with his sword and then put it to the guide's throat. Charlie was scared out of his wits. He couldn't understand what was happening. The guide was sure it was all a setup. Since Charlie was the first one to approach him, he thought it was him. It's a traditional dish, and the noble lady liked it very much. So they fed it to the lady too. How could they allow themselves to feed poisonous creatures to tourists, even without an antidote at hand? Jack was a man who always saw a catch in everything. He had become that way because of his dangerous profession. Suddenly they wanted to knock him out and steal all his money and take him further into the jungle to destroy him. Or maybe that was the norm here. Charlie didn't think long, fell at the guy's feet and started begging for mercy. He didn't want to do anything wrong. It's just a delicious kebab, which is liked by absolutely everyone without exception. You have to pay for your mistakes. So Jack asked him if he knew how to get to the village of the south. Since the guy was a guide, of course he knew how to do it. So from now on the guide was found, totally free. Charlie tried to refuse, because he's a newcomer, and he's still very afraid to go there himself. Jack grabbed him by the head, and started to explain everything factually. There are only 2 people in the village who know the way, it's that guy and Charlie comes out. If the guide still intends to refuse, the guy can implement the punishment he's come up with. Charlie interrupted him right away, said he understood, and would go. Well, then we should pack. It was good to save money, it was minimal. Even seemingly in a desperate situation he managed to get a guide for free. It's a talent, what a skillful villain after all. On the way the guys got into a swamp, you could see how Charlie was very worried, he himself was last here a long time ago. Jack was pissed off, how can you be called a guide and not even know there's a swamp? Charlie warned me he wasn't quite experienced. The villain took out his rope and threw it on the tree so that it would be renewed, so that it would be easier to walk. Charlie was shocked when he saw it, it looked like magic to him. This guy had never seen this device before. What a village, if he continues to talk nonsense, he'll be alone here. Charlie sincerely asked him not to leave him here because he was so scared. It's better there than nowhere, at least he knows which way to go. How do they pay people like that? To calm him down, Jack laid him on his back, fed him some sedative pills, and now the guy started to take everything much easier. Dasha, when his backpack, which contained all the food supplies, drowned, he was not worried at all. It's like some kind of miracle pill. The only problem, he was already very hungry, for this case was already thought out. Jack took with him some food that can lie for a long time and does not spoil, on a hike the most. Jack had a little too much dosage, but it was too late, anyway. At any moment he could be drowned in the swamp if he got tired of it. Meanwhile Siren, together with her guide, were following right in Jack's footsteps. Thomas told the girl to be very careful in the swamp, because one wrong move and a loud sound could summon many animals here. Since the girl was not ordinary, she was able to move her feet very fast, which literally allowed her to walk on water. Thomas was shocked, he couldn't believe it was possible. As it turned out, it was even possible to walk on water in any quarry or sea with this method. When the guys came to land, Serena hit naked right on the bee's nest. Any normal person would have long ago started to run, but the girl, with the help of the power of thought, simply pushed away the swarm of bees. Thomas just didn't know what to say. In fact, it was easy and simple. If you practiced on grains of sand, insects would be nothing. After that, the girl still encountered vipers, jaguar, and swamp creatures. Every single one of them was destroyed. After what he had seen, Thomas began to wonder if she was even human. But the question was quite strange. Of course she was human, she just had abilities that she had trained for years. So anyone could do it if they made an effort and started practicing. Thomas really thought he was imagining things, otherwise the only other explanation would be that the girl was a genetically modified human. It was nothing like that, but only through hard training. Running on the surface of the water, moderate use of poisons every day, and destroying people who want to destroy you, all this makes a man a warrior. But even so, the southern jungle is not as easy for the girl as she would like it to be. In short, you just need to keep going, leave the surprise for later. First you need to completely go through it all, then you can chat. After some time the guys still reached the second village. The names, of course, they have very original. The first is the first, and the second is the second. Since houses are constantly collapsing, due to frequent earthquakes, tornadoes, people are forced to constantly move from place to place, so it was decided not to complicate things and just number them. Now it's time to take a break after a long hike, to start with a good meal, then go to bed. At first glance it seemed to the girl that the locals hated the Empire, so she asked about it directly. Serena had the feeling that people just avoided her. Thomas said that. It's not like that, everyone here is neutral about the Empire, not really negative. Everyone around here is just busy with their own affairs, they don't have time to pay much attention to tourists. And by the way, soon there should be a hunting competition between the villages, it's the greatest competition among all 5 villages, which is held every year and people are preparing in full swing. So that's what all the fuss is about. Something big is coming up. In principle, if the girl really wants to participate, she can participate. There are no special requirements. Almost anyone can sign up there. As much as she would like to, but had to refuse, because she needs to first fulfill all her goals. It is to restore the reputation of the family, and the creation of a combined technique. On the hunt is simply no time. Competitions clearly will not contribute to this. While the boys were eating dinner, a woman was watching them very closely from the street. She was obviously after something. The next day, early in the morning, they went on a hike, and by this time they were right next to the 3rd village. For some reason the entrance to it was covered with a pile of wood. Very strange. What happened here? The girl decided not to procrastinate long, asked the guy to step back, and then destroy this wooden structure. The entrance opened literally instantly. Thanks to the strong fire, everything burned in seconds. Everything seemed to be fine for now. Under the rubble, the girl found people who were clearly without signs of life. There was also a man who was covered in red liquid, but he was walking calmly. He was very tall and pumped up, and he had a sword in his hand, which apparently he had just destroyed someone. And in his other hand he had the heart of some person. Then from this we can understand that now there will be a fight. No normal person will not take out the heart of another just like that. At the same moment he starts to eat it in front of everyone. The girl couldn't stand it anymore and ran to attack. The first strike was not successful. The opponent easily deflected it. Apparently he was not only crazy but also strong. During the fight he even managed to lick all the red liquid from his knife. The man knew no boundaries. He was probably mentally ill and knew no boundaries. The girl remembered Charlie's story about a Shada, which meant an evil spirit, a ghost that ate hearts. The girl remembered Charlie's story about the Shada, which means an evil spirit, a ghost that eats hearts. Now the girl saw it clearly and could even fight with it. The girl introduced herself to him, and promised that today the Shada would be punished for all his sins. The girl was so small compared to him that he didn't even consider her a rival. But it was for nothing. Thomas already knows how powerful she is, and he wouldn't advise anyone to fight her. Serena blocked his first blow, but unfortunately missed the second one immediately. She was hit on the leg. Now it will be several times more difficult to stand, no matter how hard the girl tried. So far she could not even catch her opponent. His elasticity can be envied by any gymnast. During the bout he performed very difficult tricks that require a good stretch. The spirit was indeed very powerful. After Serena blocked its first attack, she realized that it would be hard to defeat it. The girl was almost certain that this creature was not afraid of losing its life. They do not stop at anything. The most important thing for them is the process. As long as the opportunity to destroy his victim looms in front of him, wounds and pain are the least of their worries. The girl tried to talk to him, but without success. Since the monster does not compromise, there is only one thing left to do: destroy it. These words were said to the servant specifically to provoke him to another attack. As it happened, the monster mindlessly ducked into the attack. This time the girl made her sword magical. It emitted fire. Then she used the third technique of flame battle, and a huge barrage of fire went straight towards the monster and the girl with the sword. With just his knife, Shada tries to hold back this powerful blow. The question is whether he can suppress it completely under the pressure of such a high temperature. In the end his knife just broke into 2 pieces. Serena began the finishing phase. Completely unprotected, Shada dodged the blows as best he could, until the girl caught him with her sword after all. After the missed blow, he ran to the village. The girl tried to catch up with him but without success, and again he took the heart of some man. But why this savage does such things? As it turned out, when he ate a human heart, he began to regenerate his body. Even new limbs grew in seconds. Serena's astonishment was unparalleled. What kind of magic was this? How could it be? It could be said that everything she had done was for nothing. The monster was ready to fight again. He used neither holy nor demonic powers. While he does, this thing is just not even close to being human. All accumulated. talked to him, asked him who he is, but except for the word I, this monster has not had time to say anything. In fact, at first glance it may seem that this is the entire vocabulary that he has. But why did he do that? He could be killed, the opponent is too strong. He wanted to tell Serena that he had to get out of here. The girl didn't even have time to move, and the monster had already taken the man hostage and fled in an unknown direction. Thomas asked for help, but there was no way to save him now. The monster had a huge speed of movement, so in just a few seconds the girl lost sight of him. To think that he had taken a man hostage, how to be without a guide. Serena knows absolutely nothing here. The roads between the trees were very complicated and confusing. Another problem is that Tomas also had the food and belongings, so now we have to think how to get food and belongings. There is no choice, we have to go and rescue Tomas, but first we have to find him. In the meantime, Jack and his guide came to the same place where there had just been a huge massacre between Serena and Shahat. They were shocked by the scale of destruction. There are no bandits in these parts who could leave such a thing behind, so it was something else. Experienced villains should be able to understand the environments left behind by their own kind. After analyzing it, it became clear that it was the work of just one man. But why would he bite the bodies of his victims? Does he really enjoy it? These were clearly human teeth that could not be confused with anything. There was also a clash here. There was a strong fight between two powerful warriors. Either of them were clearly not going to give up so easily. Apparently the opponents were equal in strength. In short, this monster is on the same level as the subscriber if it's cannibalism, and smells, by the way, also so not. Probably it is the smell of bodies that abstract a long time ago. At one point, life in this village ended, after the arrival of this monster. Suddenly a woman comes out of the lodge. She asked where the guys came from. Her name is Aisha. She came from the last village to ask the visitors where they came to visit. After chatting for a while, the guys followed her right behind her. As it turned out, it was a woman to choose the road 100 times better than this scum, who led Jack forward. She clearly has a better understanding of the terrain. On the way, the guys were welcomed in every village. They were very happy to see. Almost everywhere they wanted to sit at a tasty table and feed. It was a very hospitable people. The guys did not refuse to disembark to eat. But Jack was uncomfortable with Aisha. She seemed strange to him. As a new guide appeared, Charlie asked to go home. Jack was very angry with him for such stupid questions. At the beginning of the journey he had made it clear to him that the guy was obliged to accompany him to the end. So there was a convincing request not to try to run away, because in any case so-and-so guys depend on each other. Jack is strong, and Charlie knows the way. In the end the guys came to the place. The girl followed them to some cabin. Before entering she knocked on the door and said that she had arrived, but not alone. Here lived in the village. He gladly let the guests who had come to him such a long way. It's tradition for everyone to sit in the lotus position. Jack said he was honored to sit in the same house with the head. He asked not to flatter him, because he had very little influence over people. The head asked why Jack had come to see him, although he should have known all about it beforehand. Jack said that he would like the head to become a member of their organization. He didn't understand why such a professional like him was given such a simple task. It turned out that the head had to obey. If he refused he would have problems. This offer certainly looked very funny, as if there was no way to refuse. The old man said that it was an unusual beast. Its claws were very fierce. It was not easy to defeat it, or rather no one had ever managed to do so. If all the guards fall, the village will be in danger. Most likely all those who are here now will die. I mean, there's something so scary here that might scare off an old man who's been nothing but snakes his whole life. If he's talking about Jack, maybe they don't have any real defenders. But there's a question here too. In that village where everything's ruined there's billiard traces of a fight between two equally matched fighters. Another interesting fact is that all these troubles started during the negotiations of the organization Jack represents. An interesting coincidence, isn't it? And this guy would make a great villain. I can see why the organization needed him so badly. Jack began to suspect that the negotiations had failed. If this man was going to threaten, Then that's where he should have started. Why did he take so long to break down? But for the sake of decorum, he had to ask what the head of the organization wanted from him. The old man asked me to take care of the problem. Now we have to figure out if it was a threat or a request. So no rest, no time to get our hands dirty in this shit and destroy this monster. Apparently the company knew this was coming, so they sent Jack on this mission. The old man also said that he had poor eyesight, so he might not be able to tell Jack from the beast. The boy offered to show the tip of his sword at once, so that no one would mistake him for the beast. The head said it would be unnecessary at the moment. If everything goes smoothly, Jack will enjoy the best banquet of his life tonight, and tomorrow he and the head will be very busy with the contracts. When the guy got outside the village, he started running away fast. Did the old man think Jack was so crazy that he'd be out here having fun while the chief was thinking of ways to skin him? Even Charlie said that the boy was a mess. Jack was quick to drop his jaw, and said it wasn't done on purpose. When suddenly someone threw a hook at the guys, which fell right at their feet. Charlie was not on a joke frightened, as it turned out it was the same woman's spy who was watching the siren, but for some reason it was filled with her, and on Jack. I wonder what she wants, but judging by the way she showed up, she didn't come here to say hello, and it turned out she wasn't alone, she was with Aishi. Jack said he didn't want to waste his time. Then the lady with the spear said that something inside Jack looked very familiar, she saw him in the devil's soul. It sounded very interesting, but nobody knew what it was about yet. Apparently that meant that the guy was going to have to fight now, so he took his sword in his hands, and was ready to take the fight right now. The girls attacked him with spear and hook at the same time, and as the guy knows his job, with one easy sword movement he attacked both girls at once, then jumped high up and threw shurikens at them. Unfortunately none of them hit the target, but it was a pretty good counter-attack. Charlie was lying on the floor, afraid to do anything when a shuriken fell near him, and he almost fainted. Jack tried to use his ropes to tie up at least one of his rivals. But to the great regret to tell the ropes girl at him did not succeed, but while one of them was distracted by the rope, Jack managed to inflict a light wound. The plan worked almost perfectly. Because of the severe pain, lady fell to the floor. Now it will be much more difficult for her to continue the fight. But unfortunately it was not so smooth. When Jack was distracted, the second woman launched her hook again. I wrapped the chains around the guy's throat. At the same time the second lady woke up, and threw a shuriken right into the guy's leg. Also the hook, very painfully caught in the guy's shoulder. Something had to be done immediately. It's a good thing there was one trump card up his sleeve. Jack took a pouch with some contents out of his pocket, then opened it with the blade of a hook that was sticking out of his shoulder, and after opening it, there was a strong release of pollen that blinded the two women. Jack was in a hell of a lot of pain, but there was no attention to tenderness, needing to pull himself together, run up to the guide, and go home together. By the way, Charlie had also sniffed a lot of pollen, and wasn't thinking straight. Jack took him behind his back, reciting aloud the spell that hid them together from those evil girls. There was no trace of the guys, they just vanished into thin air. It was the kind of magic that these women will never know, you have to admit. They were very close to their goal, but apparently not this time. Jack is not as easy as it may seem at first glance. Today he managed to get away, but will he be able to get away next time? At the moment the guys are somewhere in the middle of the woods. Jack was wondering how she knew he was in the demon's shower, if she was there too. Now these women will relentlessly take attempts to take the life of the guy, need to urgently think of something, because next time may be so unlucky. After what happened, Charlie tried to talk to Jack. He was sure you women recognized him. The guy denied it, said they were mistaken because he'd never seen them before. Since Jack didn't want to talk, he asked Charlie to listen to him once, if all these questions are what he's worried about the most right now. Not only Jack could lose his life, but Charlie's too. The guy didn't want any stupid questions from him, so he just told him to keep walking. Now it is necessary to hide far away from them, to meet them as late as possible, or better never. Guys approached the village to understand the mood of the locals. As it turned out, there has long been gathered not a large army, which will scratch the whole forest in search of Jack. Now they are out on the hunt, raised on the ears of the whole village. They are about 100 if not more. They're just nuts. The escape is becoming less and less realizable, to distract Jack through a nest of insects on the territory of the village. While the locals deal with the insects, the guys are slowly moving forward.